The sirens are really only most concerning for those of you that are north of I-74. So here we are. I think this is Sunman Road that basically goes right into the southern parts of Franklin County here. You can see that's where your rotation would be on the storm as it moves off towards the north and east. So again, if you're hearing sirens in places like Lawrenceburg, for example, or even Versailles, this warning doesn't include you. It's the extreme northern parts of Ripley and Dearborn counties, and soon, even here in Ripley County, that severe threat is going to be expiring. So we just got that update on the radar right now. Looks like the circulation should pass to the north of Sunman, but watch out here if you're on Pine Road, for example, East Road. We're going to talk about, it's kind of difficult to see here as I'm looking at the name of this. Is it Morrow Road? These are some small kind of county roads just north of I-74. Basically, the rotation is going to pass right along the Franklin and Dearborn County line. So if you're over here in Harrison, for example, you're hearing the sirens, or in West Harrison, at this moment, the severe threat is to the north and west of you, meaning that it should stay if the storm continues to jog off towards the north and east. Just to the north of Harrison. But if you're out here, for example, on Route 1, Indiana 1, for example, in Dearborn and southern Franklin counties to the south of Brookville, this is where you want to be taking shelter. Remember, I know it's kind of winter, so you may be out of practice a little bit for some of your severe weather preparedness. Remember, you want to get to the lowest level of your home. The idea is to put as many walls between you and the outside winds as you possibly can here. And of course, if you're in a mobile home, for example, if you're along Route 1 to the south of Brookville, you still have a little bit of time. The storm's going to be coming up on you pretty quickly here towards Highland Center and Mount Haven. So if any of these communities at all sound familiar to you, you need to go ahead and find yourself in the lowest level of your home, and certainly somewhere with a sturdy structure. You want to get out of any type of mobile homes here with this storm. So we continue to track the rotation. There it is. Just now about to cross into southern parts of Franklin County. So if you're joining us, I know it's at the top of the hour, it's 2 o'clock. We have a tornado watch that's in effect for the tri-state, for most of the tri-state. Now, the threat for tornadoes remains relatively low overall, but we are watching a few storms that have exhibited rotation. And right now, the greatest concern remains on to the west of Cincinnati through southeast Indiana, and I would think the threat's going to be up into Franklin, probably western Butler counties, but this isn't bad-looking rotation here in terms of potential for a tornado. So if you're out here towards East Road, here comes that circulation, and you can see our cylinder here basically representing where you have that rotation. If you continue to take that off towards the north and east, it would appear as if this rotation may be tightening a little bit as it comes towards Pine Road. So if you're along Route 1, or if you know anyone, for example, if you're in southeast Indiana and you have a friend or a loved one that travels Route 1 this time of the day between Brookville and I-74, you might want to pick up the phone, give them a call, give them a heads up that you want to delay any travel between I-74 and Brookville for at least the next 20 to 30 minutes as we have this broad circulation here. And this is an interesting structure on the radar. You can kind of see that hook-like signature, a pinnature on the back. And again, I do believe that this storm is tightening up in rotation just a little bit. So if you are here along Route 1 again, if you're south of Brookville on Route 1, you need to be in a safe place. I think this circulation should stay south of Brookville. So I know you're in the warning in Brookville, and you'll still want to go ahead and take the necessary precautions, get into the safe place, but I'm liking what I'm seeing for Brookville. But if you're down Route 1, for example, pretty close to where Route 1 and 52 split, here in southeastern Franklin County, this is where the circulation is coming. So it's coming over fairly rural parts of Franklin County right now. It's going to be coming up towards Bossert Road, Long Hollow Road, East Road here in the next couple of minutes. If any of these roads ring a bell to you here in southeast Indiana, you need to be getting to a safe place once again. So this is going to pass, it would appear, just south of Brookville, out towards Pine Road, and that's where we're keeping a close eye. Allison, let's go back, take the radar out just a little bit for a closer inspection of everything that's happening here around the area, see if there are any additional storms, because that's the one storm, that's the main storm. Just in case you're wondering, it is going to get pretty stormy here across much of Hamilton County and northern Kentucky over the next several minutes. There are some storms that we'll be keeping a close eye on. At the moment, The only storm of imminent concern is the one here in Franklin County. But Allison, with this development here to the south and west of Cincinnati, let's just take the velocity tool and see if by chance there's any rotation, because a lot of these storms have exhibited some broad rotation today. Not enough to produce a tornado, but some broad rotation out of some of these storms. There's the Franklin County storm, and we'll come back up to that here in just a moment. But as we switch the radar over, we're changing and moving radar sites just a little bit, and it takes a moment, but as we get the new data in here, we're going to look at what else is happening to the south and east. And right now, I'm not really clearly seeing any areas or detecting any areas of significant rotation here on the radar. Again, the only area of imminent concern remains the storm up here in parts of Franklin, southern parts of Franklin County, where we have the current tornado warning that is in effect at this time. So this is the only storm again. No tornado warnings currently in effect in Ohio or Kentucky. It's just this one lone storm here in the southern parts of Franklin County. And it looks a very interesting structure here on this storm. Could have a little bit of a kind of a bounded weak echo region. Sometimes and basically in weather terms, that usually could be a little indication of a possible tornado. Just looking at the structure of this storm, I would not rule out the chance that there is a small tornado in here with this particular storm that's coming up on Route 1. Most certainly, I suspect that you would see a wall cloud, if not anything but a base lowering out of this storm, just based off the signature and the representation I'm seeing there on the radar from this. So if you're in southern Franklin County, this is going to be to the south of 252 right now. And basically, if you're along Route 1, that circulation is quickly coming up on Route 1. That's going to be the potential tornadic cell here. In fact, right here, notice where you see all of the lightning? That usually corresponds with where you're likely to have your updraft of the storm and the potential rotation. So if you're hearing, for example, in Cedar Grove, in the next couple of minutes, you're probably going to start to hear an increase in lightning. This storm isn't producing a ton of lightning, but you're going to start to hear a little more thunder and lightning out of this storm. If you're down here in Cedar Grove, you should be in your safe place right now. As this storm is very likely coming up on you here in the next couple of minutes. It's going to come very close to the split between 52 and State Route 1 and southeast Indiana. So you can see as that core of the storm moves up towards Cedar Grove, notice you're seeing additional lightning strikes beginning to increase ahead of it. So oftentimes during the winter months, usually a good signature of a storm that's either intensifying or could be capable of producing a tornado, you get lightning out of it because oftentimes this time of the year there's not enough instability, to generate storms that are intense enough to produce lightning. But when you can get one that's cranking out lightning in these conditions, I wouldn't at all be surprised, Allison, if there's not any rotation, if there's not a possible tornado or at least some type of circulation right here under the Hollow and Long Hollow Road. So this is going to come very, very close to the intersection of 52 and State Route 1 where they fork, where they split there to the south and east of Brookville. That appears to me to be the area of rotation. Is the Weather Service, Allison, by chance saying, have they gotten any confirmation?
No, so far no confirmation of a actual tornado. However, the National Weather Service did put out not too long ago, Kevin, around 2 o'clock exactly, some pea-sized hail reported in Batesville, Indiana, not too far away. That is in, of course, Ripley County. So watching as the storm moves off to the north and east here, again, as Kevin mentioned, keeping a very close eye on that lightning that's happening and then keeping a very close eye on the rotation as well. As it's pushing off to the north and east, moving at about 50, 55 miles per hour or so. So this is moving very, very quickly, approaching now 52, as Kevin mentioned, kind of where it forks over towards State Road 1. And we just got the latest scan in there, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm wondering, can we check the correlation coefficient by chance? Can we see that, the debris signature, just to see if there's anything there that would be noteworthy? That basically, I'm asking Allison to switch the radar over here where we're able to see in the event there is a tornado, if there were an actual confirmed tornado on the ground. We don't have that yet, but if there were, we would be able to detect maybe some lofted debris, something put into the air, sucked up basically by the tornado. Again, keep an eye out there southeast of Brookville. If you're right along 52 and 1, here's the circulation right now. Just south would probably be very close to Long Hollow Road and crossing State Route 1 in the next couple of minutes. This is the tornado warning that's currently in effect. Again, if you're in Brookville, I think you're okay. The circulation is probably going to be just there to your south. I think what we're seeing here, Allison, which may be of interest, is a little bit of hail probably, maybe in the storm.
Yeah, let me see if I can get Ville values up for you.
We did have some pea-sized hail, and remember, the hail at core would be to the north of where you'd have any potential tornado there. But interesting, though, to see that debris signature was so far to the north when it looks like the circulation here would be farther to the south out of this. Just looking at that, let's go back to the actual reflectivity on the storm. See what's happening. Because if there were a tornado, it would seem to be in this area here.
Yeah. Let me throw on the time lapse with CC and see if that helps.
All right, let's try that.
Dissect what's going on with that.
Because looking at the signature of the storm, the best circulation and possible tornado would be down here where you see the greatest area of lightning.
Yeah.
You can't help but wonder, could that possibly be some lofted debris from that? I don't, it's just kind of weird to see that debris signature that far to the north there.
Right.
When most certainly the rotation, it's got to be down there near 52 and State Route 1 as you look at the radar. I mean, when you look at the velocity signature, you can clearly see there's the rotation there on the radar. Very close to basically crossing 1 as we speak to the south and east of Brookville. But this is part of the reason why, again, even with this up here, why we say, you know what, let's stay in your safe place. But I still think the most dangerous part of the storm is far to the south and east of Brookville. So basically the tornado warning right now includes Franklin County. That's the only area right now that's currently under a tornado warning. Essentially is this small corner here of Franklin County, basically right along 52 and State Route 1. Again, this storm does have some hail in it. And that's why I can't help but wonder if that's a little bit of hail that it's being tracked there on the radar, kind of displaced from where the best circulation would be on that. Because again, you notice follow the path of the lightning, basically. And that's where, if you're starting to hear an increase in thunder, you're basically probably going to be very close to the most dangerous part of this storm. And again, that's going to be crossing 1. Here about to cross, I guess this would probably be old 52 maybe, to the east of State Route 1 in southeast Indiana. But obviously some small hail, I wouldn't be surprised, being reported out of this storm as well. Give it a couple of minutes and the circulation, as you can see now, because these storms are what, moving at about 50 to 60?
Yep, 50 to 60, 55 or so miles per hour.
So now the next heads up would be for those of you up here towards the Mount Carmel area and Sharptown. So right here, basically along 252, if you're east of Brookville on 252, this is where you're now going to need to get into your safe place. And did you see that? We just got another lightning strike. So again, what I'm noticing with this is the uptick in lightning that's preceding the actual updraft or the most dangerous part of the storm here, where there would likely be potential rotation. So notice these lightning strikes on the increase right along, I think that's Johnson Road, there to the south of 252. So the tornadic circulation, it's over fairly rural parts right now of Franklin County, and coming out of Cedar Grove here, between Cedar Grove and Sharptown, and to the south of 252. You notice the lightning. It's kind of eerie if you're up here towards Scipio, for example. And then if you're in the western parts of Butler County, I'll go ahead and say this, to the west of Hamilton, up towards Oxford, areas over north of Riley, or should I say basically if you're north of 129 in in Butler County, to the north, if you're in Butler County and you're near north of 129, there's currently not a tornado warning out, but looks like you probably should go ahead and start thinking about what you're going to do. Did they just extend that?
They did just go ahead and extend that tornado warning. So the Polygon should update here shortly, Kevin.
So there you go. There's the official warning now from the Weather Service. If you're over here in Riley, if you're up here towards Miami University, I would think of most imminent worry would be those of you in Riley. Hopefully this may stay just south of Oxford and Miami U, but if you were to extrapolate this out, this would bring it right into the Riley community. So if you're near and north of 129 now in Butler County, you are probably hearing the sirens going off. You are probably hearing the sirens going off across northern parts of Butler County at the moment. So again, if you are to the west of Millville, This is where we're most concerned. And again, Allison, this is not a bad-looking circulation here on the radar, and it's been persistent, so we at least know that this storm has decent structure and organization to it. So that's what we're keeping a very close eye on. Again, if you are to the west of Millville, and particularly heading up towards, if you're heading up towards the Riley community, that's where we're tracking this storm. Again, the tornadic signature is going to be near the Riley community at any moment. So give yourself now, you've probably got, under 5 minutes or so in Riley. So right here is where your tornadic signature is. Basically, you have your reds and greens, your winds going side by side. This enables us to see through the rain, through the hail, and anything else that you're seeing to actually be able to detect where the most dangerous part of this storm is. So again, this is going to be coming up on Hart Road in the extreme western parts of Butler County and the city of Riley. So if you have a friend or a loved one that you know that lives in the Riley community, you need to give them a call and give them an immediate heads up that they do have a potential tornado headed in their direction. So again, western Butler County, if you're just joining us, it's 2:15. You're probably just now beginning to hear the sirens go off in Butler County. And in case you're wondering, if you're hearing them in places like Westchester, if you're hearing them in Fairfield, if you're hearing them, let's say at this moment, even in Hamilton, this warning does not include you at this time. This basically includes areas north and west of Hamilton, north of 129, out towards Oxford and Riley and Butler County in these areas. So you can see here, here's a look at regular radar. And what you have basically is you have heavy rain in this area in black. You have some hail. That's where you're going to have some torrential rain and hail. And notice on the back side of this, oftentimes it is on the southwest side or the tail end of these storms where you could have a possible tornado. And it would be right in this area, right here, where there could be a potential tornado with this storm. So that's what we're keeping a very close eye on. There's another interesting storm, Allison. I'm just looking at this as this pulls away here. If you go back to velocity there, that's another interesting storm there just to the north of Bath as well. So if you're up here in West College Corner, I'd be less concerned about this simply because this storm to the south would likely choke that one off a little bit. So I think the more dominant storm at the moment is the one that's moving into western Butler County, folks. If you're north of Hamilton, north of Millville, again, if you're out on 27, if you know anyone that's traveling between Oxford and Millville or Oxford and Hamilton or have plans on traveling around this time of the afternoon, again, between Miami University and the Hamilton area, give them a heads up and let them know that if they're driving along 27, they could be encountering the potential for a storm that could be capable of producing a tornado. So again, this is going to be in western Butler County. This is going to be out towards the Riley area. If you're in Riley, the weather's about to get really nasty. You're going to get some hail probably, some extremely heavy rainfall, but it is on the tail end right here along 252. This is going to be between Johnson Fork Road, for example, and it's going to be coming up on Hart Road and Peoria Riley Road, Dunwoody Road. If any of these small roads sound familiar to you in the extreme western parts of Butler County and the Riley community, that's where we're likely to see a thunderstorm, at least capable of producing a tornado. Now, we've yet to get any confirmation of an actual tornado, but this is an impressive looking storm, nonetheless on the radar. And this is the storm that we've been following for a while since it was back over in central Indiana. It's had rotation its entire life cycle, so not surprising that it remains fairly well structured. I mean, it has, for a February storm, it has a fairly impressive look on radar with it. And you can clearly see what we call kind of that dog leg on the back edge of this here, the hook echo, and enshrouded in this area of rain would be your tornado. So you're probably not going to see this. But right in there, in this little ball on the tail end, is where you're likely to find the tornado. So what's going to happen if you're up here in McGonigal, if you're up towards Oxford, right? You guys are going to get in on some heavy rain, probably some gusty winds, even potentially some hail with this. But right now, the tornadic part of this storm is going to come up right after that rain and hail ends and come very close to crossing. On this trajectory, I would think the circulation passes south of Oxford, somewhere along 27, very close to Riley. I think Riley's the community in greatest concern right now. And then areas just north of Riley, along 27, that's where you need to be getting in your safe place. So I'm sure you're hearing the sirens in places like Somerville and Collinsville, Jacksonburg. You may even be hearing it over here towards Middletown and Trenton and 7 Mile. The storm is moving in that direction. But for the next 10 to 15 minutes at least, the imminent concern is for those of you down here around the Riley community. So that's where we're looking at for the possible tornado. We just got a latest update on the radar. And again, it's going to be right in here, crossing Hart Road now, Weaver Road. If you're in Riley, the time's up. You need to be in your safe place. That circulation is essentially right on top of you now. It's going to be just to the north of Newkirk, probably right here over Hart Road and Weaver Road. Likely going to be, this is 27. There's the community of Riley. And this is likely to head east down Stillwell Road, for example. Riley Millville Road. This is all to the west of Hamilton at this time. So this is where we're tracking this current tornado warning that's currently up in Butler County. If you're wondering why you are hearing the sirens. Again, this doesn't currently include Fairfield. It doesn't currently include Westchester. I'm trying to think the Union Town Center area. At the moment, you guys are not an imminent concern, but I would be worried if you're up here towards McGonigal. This is in the extreme, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right here, in the extreme western part of Butler County. This is all going to be to the west of the Hamilton area. And again, I think if you're up here in Oxford, for example, there's Oxford right underneath the banner. It's not far to your south, but I think it stays far enough south that it's not a concern for those of you in the Oxford community, although you are still getting some pretty nasty weather up there around Miami U. Looking at this, Allison, maybe losing a little bit of its structure. You want to try see again with the debris signature, the correlation coefficient, just to see if anything has changed here potentially, see if we're seeing any type of debris. I guess it's a little comforting to know that we haven't gotten any confirmation of a tornado yet.
So far, no confirmation of anything at the moment. In fact, I was just checking in with Twitter, not seeing anybody reporting anything. Typically, we have pretty good response from folks who live over toward Oxford on Twitter. So far, nothing there. The National Weather Service chat so far, continuing the tornado warning. This just came out within the last couple of seconds. Continuing the tornado warning for Butler County until, let's see here. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located near Oxford, moving northeast at 55 miles per hour. So just kind of reading these right away here. Again, not seeing any other reports of that, but we are still, Kevin, seeing some lightning popping up with this. If I pause the lapse and look at...
And I will mention that debris area there, while displaced, I think it's probably more representative of the hail core up there, because I'm now seeing that black, the area of black. Whenever you see black on the radar like that, you can almost be certain that you're dealing with some type of hail on the storm. And I do think a little bit of that debris signature that we were seeing is probably actually seeing different sizes of what's likely to be some fairly small hail. So here's the hail tracker, right? This is your hail tracker. We've been keeping an eye on that. And notice it's just south of Oxford. Well, that's the same area where on our debris signature we were seeing what looked to be potentially maybe some debris, but I think that's actually hail. And I think the circulation, again, is just south of that there, just north of the Okeana area. You want to go back to, let's go back to velocity here and kind of see what we're seeing in terms of the storm. So there it is. There's the storm just south of Oxford, which is likely producing a tornado. What I do find interesting is the fact that the Weather Service decided to keep the polygon fairly wide there and give a little room for the Oxford community as well, because that storm, if we go back to, really quick here, we go back to the reflectivity, to basic radar, standard radar, there is another small sail up there. I don't think it has anything to really do with that, but, it's interesting that there is still a fairly wide polygon there. That includes the city of Oxford. It appears that while Oxford's going to get some pretty nasty hail, especially on the south side of town, let's zoom in really close here to Oxford, get in pretty close.
Actually, just hearing of the potential for some half inch hail over toward Oxford, Kevin.
Okay, so that would be on the east side of town. So basically for like High Street, down towards Lanes Mill Road, east of Oxford here, heading out towards Darttown, then this purple shading, this is where you're gonna have some hail. Now, if you go just south of that, the fact that you're seeing hail in Oxford is probably a good thing at this point because the circulation itself is passing to the south of Oxford where there would be the possible tornado. The possible tornado would be in this general area near McCoy Road and about to cross Stillwell-Beckett Road and then coming very close again to the McGonigal community here in the western parts of Butler County. So Oxford is here. I think you're okay in Oxford. For example, the tornadic circulation looks to be staying far south, probably by, 5-8 miles or so to the south of Oxford. So the tornadic circulation is south of Oxford. You can see it here, and now passing to the south and east, but it is going to cross 27. So anyone traveling between Oxford and McGonigal would possibly be in the path of this potential storm, showing some rotation with it here once again. And again, nothing confirmed. You're getting nasty weather up in Collinsville, Darttown, you've got some nasty weather, even again, the potential for some half-inch size hail out of this storm east of Oxford. But right now, this is the tornadic structure in circulation on the storm. Back in this area here is where you would possibly find your tornado. I most certainly think if you're in McGonigal and you're looking north and west, you should be in your safe place. If you're looking north and west, you're most certainly seeing some type of base lowering, basically where even if there's not an actual circulation all the way to the ground, you're more than likely certainly seeing some type of wall cloud out of this on the tail end of this storm here. So again, McCoy Road over towards McGonigal right now along 27 south. And I'm going to go ahead and give the all clear for those of you in Oxford because the circulation is passing to the south and east. So if you're in the city of Oxford, I think you're in good shape right now. Let's give it a few more minutes just to let this get completely past us to the east. But if you're in Oxford, Miami University, I think you can take kind of a sigh of relief here as the most dangerous part of the storm is just to your south and east. Close call, but to the south and east of Oxford. If you're out towards Nichols Road, for example, out towards Scott Road, you folks would be next in line. So this is moving east of 27 now. There's your circulation, basically, right along Beckett Road. I think that's Stillhouse, maybe Beckett Road there, right on the west side of 27 to the north and west of McGonigal again. And then this is going to head over towards 7 Mile. If you're in 7 Mile, you've probably got about 10 minutes before this gets close to you. So if you're over in 7 Mile, remember, this is 27. Here's the 7 Mile community. The storm's moving at 50 to 60 miles per hour. So I'd say in about 10 minutes, you need to be in your safe place now. You need to be moving to your safe place with the potential of this circulation getting close to you within the next 10 minutes or so. So I'm thinking Darttown, pretty close. You should be in your safe place at this point near the Darttown community. Again, you've got your kidney bean structure, and then you got your little dog leg there on the tail end of this storm, and that's where you would find your potential rotation with this. Just looking at what else is happening around the area, the weather's nasty across the metro, but at this point, it's non-severe, and I think the greatest severe threat is basically where it is now, and then on north up into the I-70 area north of us. We're kind of on the fringes of this. And to be honest with you, I think this is going to be the bulk of our action for the day. This has been the one storm we've been watching here now that continues to skirt its way up to the north and west of Middletown. I think if you're hearing the sirens in Hamilton, Westchester, I'm trying to think here, the Fairfield communities, any of these communities, you are not under a threat at the moment from any type of tornadic activity. This would be all to your north. And basically, let's zoom in here, Allison, because this is the only storm that we have with a current tornado warning on it. And again, for a February storm, it's an impressive supercell. It has maintained itself for quite the period of time. And oftentimes, we'll see these storms go through cycles. So when you see a storm like this we've been following since it was back over in Indiana, to see it kind of ebb and flow is what you would expect. It's not going to stay very strong, or it will fluctuate in intensity as it moves along here. So as it kind of recycles and reorganizes itself, I have noticed overall a little bit of a decrease in lightning. That's a positive sign. Typically, when these storms are cycling up, meaning they're becoming more intense, you'll tend to see an uptick in lightning. We did see that, if you've been following us here, 15 to 20 minutes ago, but within the past couple of minutes, there seems to be a little bit of a decrease in the lightning activity. That's not to say that the threat is no longer there, just simply looking at an analysis here on the radar of what we're seeing that's happening. Again, 7 Mile, especially if you're to the west of 7 Mile, I would be concerned. I'm going to slide over to the other side of the screen here because in the corner, we do have other communities. For example, if you're up here in Middletown, I do think if you're on the west side of town for sure, you need to be thinking about what you're going to do as this storm is coming up from the south and west. I do think overall, Trenton, you're in good shape. The Monroe outlets, you guys are fine. I do think if you're up here towards Middletown, though, and down the line, it's still a ways away, and that's even to say if this storm maintains its intensity. If you're up here north of Franklin even, for example, I'd be keeping an eye out on this as well. So this is, again, the northern third, basically, of Butler County now. So if you're south of 7 Mile or Trenton, you're in good shape. You don't have to worry about this storm. It's all for those of you north of 7 Mile at this point, heading over towards the Middletown area. This is where we've got the potential circulation. Again, I can sound the all clear for those of you in Oxford. You're fine in Oxford now. That storm is to your east. But anywhere here between Somerville and 7 Mile, would be our areas of greatest concern. Let's try one more time. Let's see, Allison, on the debris tracker, maybe, if there's anything coming up out of that we can see happening with this storm here in the past couple of minutes. And again, not seeing anything, but here, let's try to overlay that with the actual velocity and see if we're seeing it and see if that matches up. So not bad there. There's a little bit of a debris signature there.
Yeah.
So go back again, show you what we're doing here. This is basically, you're basically following right along with us as we're doing live radar analysis. All right, here's 7 Mile. Here's our debris signature. Now, this is what's interesting. Just to help you out, what is a debris tracker? Basically, the radar is scanning the horizon to see anything that's out there, right? And let's say, for example, if it's a piece of debris or pieces of debris, for example, the radar beam will hit that, and then that beam gets reflected back to the radar site. And obviously, depending on the return of the beam back to the radar site, that determines different objects, right? So it basically assigns various colors to that. And when you see something like this, it makes you wonder, well, could there be some debris potentially being lofted in the air from this storm, particularly when you overlay that. Now, Allison, let's go back. And you overlay that with what you're actually seeing there on the velocity product. So that is interesting, right? And something that we need to watch. But we haven't yet had any confirmation of an actual tornado. But if you're here near the 7 Mile area, this would be something I'd be keeping a very close eye on, particularly with more lightning. There you go again. Starting to see a little bit of an uptick in lightning strikes again. So north of 7 Mile, I think that's where you need to remain most alert. Allison, do you have anything there on the radar, anything from the Weather Service?
Nothing from the Weather Service, but I mentioned earlier we have pretty good people in Oxford and around the Oxford area on social media who often check in with us. Got one check-in from Jim saying he didn't see any rotation as the storm passed McGonigal, but it certainly looked mean. So it definitely does look very ominous outside. Even just looking in the last hour or so outside of our city cam, looking over downtown Cincinnati, that sky looked very ominous earlier today. I do want to go over this severe thunderstorm warning that we now have issued for the Cincinnati Metro. This does include areas of Mason up toward Morrow. So many of the folks in the Cincinnati Metro around Blue Ash, Norwood, Finneytown, Cheviot, north of downtown Cincinnati, some parts of the west side and east side, all under a severe thunderstorm warning here.
And I think we can hear it outside the studio here now.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly is starting to sound quite windy outside. So let me just check in really quick with this. And so the National Weather Service, they've been adding a lot of these tags in on these severe thunderstorm warnings saying tornado possible. It's still a severe thunderstorm warning, but treat it with a little bit more intensity just because we do have that possibility of tornado on that tagline for the severe thunderstorm warning. So 60 miles per hour winds, still a possibility with this. We also could see hail up to about the size of an inch with this storm here. Again, this is moving through areas of Cincinnati, and I'd say it's likely because of this little cell right here. moving just north of Green Hills, around Forest Park and Sharonville as well. Some pretty mean rain coming down there. But Kevin, not seeing any lightning with this particular cell or any of the surrounding cells around the metro or northern Kentucky.
That storm, let's go back to that storm in northern Butler County, because as you were talking about what's happening in the city, this storm here in Butler County, it may be cycling a little bit because it seems to be getting better structure again. And notice the uptick in lightning that has occurred. You see that there? All the lightning strikes, once again, that are starting to pop up out of this. I would not, again, at all be surprised to the north of 7 Mile if there's not some type of small tornado with this. Certainly going to say, right now, one piece of good news I'll throw out. If you're in Middletown, I think you're in good shape here. But if you're here north of 7 Mile, there's still potentially a tornado in that. You want to go back to the velocity as well, and then go back to the correlation to the debris tracker as well. So here we are. Let's zoom you in close to 7 Mile, or just north of 7 Mile there. And there we have it. It's a little messy looking, but right in here is where I would expect the rotation. So this is West Elkton Road. So the rotation is about to cross just north of 7 Mile, and it's likely to cross West Elkton Road and head its way up towards Talbot Road and then Elk Creek Road. So these are all areas out here to the west of Middletown. So it's in this area, and while not nearly as impressive as before, still getting a little bit of a return there on the radar from our debris tracker. Not seeing much, but something to keep an eye on. If anything, it would be right in here, crossing Route 127. So again, these are fairly rural areas, but you go back to the velocity, Allison, and back to regular radar reflectivity, and we can clearly see the storm looking a little more impressive here in the past couple of minutes. So the tail end, somewhere in this general area, would appear to be where we're keeping a close eye on. So again, just north of 7 Mile, potential tornadic circulation here, going to be crossing to the west of those of you in Middletown. So I'll go ahead and give you the all clear in Middletown as well again, because I think you're in good shape. Keeping a close eye on the Franklin Springboro areas, because I think what the Weather Service is most likely going to do here is likely take this warning and probably expand it so it clips the extreme northwestern parts of Warren County. So I'd keep an eye out Franklin up towards the Springboro communities as well, as this storm is moving off towards the north and east. So that's the storm we're keeping an eye on. Allison, big picture radar setup. It's 2:36. If you're joining us, we have a tornado watch in effect for basically the 275 loop north up into Ohio. At this point, the area of greatest concern remains to be the one lone storm up here in Butler County, but we do have severe thunderstorm warnings that have now come out and are currently in effect for Hamilton, Butler, and Warren counties. Now, there's only one tornado warning, but we do have a severe thunderstorm warning that includes the metro and then areas towards Warren County. Allison, let's zoom in. I do really quick want to zoom in on the storm here that's right over downtown Cincinnati, basically in Hamilton County, and heading off towards the east. Just looking at this storm, you know, to me at this point, it just looks like a big rainmaker. This is probably going to be just a really nasty rainmaker. There could be some pockets of gusty winds in there, but I'm not seeing anything that looks like it's showing any rotation. The warning is actually for the storm to the north. Let's go north just a little bit here. I did want to investigate that storm as well, but take you just to the north a little bit. Here's the storm that triggered the warning up here in Hamilton County. And there was a little bit of rotation with that when it was back out towards White Oak. And there still may be some now. Let's go back to reflectivity, see if that matches up. It's kind of tough to see. I don't see anything with this storm that looks alarming at this point. I just think it's kind of messy looking at the moment. But there could be some gusty winds in there. And I think that's what they're most concerned about at this point. As Allison is showing, the radar could be seeing some wind gusts in the 60-mile-an-hour range. So any of these heavier showers, because winds are so strong if you go up above the ground, you don't have to go very far up above the ground. They're screaming today, right? And anytime you get one of these heavier showers that grows up, it can tap those stronger winds and bring it down to the ground. So that's what's happening. And that's the reason why you've got the severe thunderstorm warning in effect. So any of the heavier showers, yes, could certainly produce a very quick 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gust, or should I say 50 to 60 marginally severe wind gust here out of any of these areas. So that's what we're keeping a close eye on. I do see, Allison, real quick before I send it over to you, show me the radar here to the north, just real quick before we get out of Butler County here. Update you on what's happening here. We still have the tornado warning in effect for this storm to the west of it's west of Middletown, still showing decent, at least broad circulation at the very least out of this storm. I'm going to send it back over to you.
Yeah, okay, so I want to briefly talk about, Kevin, you mentioned that there were some pretty intense rains coming down for much of greater Cincinnati. And as I was looking earlier, I was looking at some of the cameras around town, and I believe Katie has I-275 over at Mostella Road pulled up. And it's just kind of showing, I was looking at it earlier, and we've got some pretty heavy rain coming down now. I don't know if we have the ability to pull that for our camera to see, but we kind of could hear the wall of water coming down whenever that intense rain was coming down on top of our studios here in Mount Auburn. We have some really intense rain. There it is. You can see the wind is blowing the camera around quite a bit. And then we also have some pretty intense rain right there along I-275. Again, this is over toward Mostella Road. And so the highways and expressways seeing some really, really heavy rainfall at the moment. And now that it's about 2:40 or so, again, not the best timing, especially with schools likely starting to let out or anything like that. But in terms of the afternoon commute time frame, you know, it's not 5 o'clock, so there is that. But still keeping a very close eye on this severe thunderstorm warning that's moving throughout Hamilton County. I'm not sure, I believe we have Brian Hamrick, who is in Live Drive east of Trenton along 73. I'm not sure if we have his shot ready yet, not quite yet. But again, this is I-275 over at Mostella Road, and this is giving you an idea of what some of the expressways look like around greater Cincinnati within the metro, where we have, you can see the radar on the right of your screen. We have some really heavy, heavy cells moving through. And again, we also have some of that intense lightning happening in northern Butler County. So as you're looking over to the left there, that is I-275 at Mostella Road. And then otherwise, we do have some really intense rain coming down for parts of the Columbia Parkway, areas throughout Norwood, I-71. Looks like over by the Lateral, just to the east of the Lateral, we're seeing some intense rain coming down there as well. So some incredibly heavy rain coming down to, you know, it's not some parts of greater Cincinnati, some of those roads and stuff, it's never fun to be on the Columbia Parkway whenever rain's coming down that heavy. We also have some really intense downpours along I-75 as well. Kevin?
Hey, all right, Allison. Yeah, we are seeing heavy rainfall, and you're right. We did hear that as it came over the station. Two things I want to do really quick here. Let's first go to the Butler County storm, and then I want to drop south into northern Kentucky because there is a storm I'm watching down there in southern Boone County. Get to that here in just a moment. First things first here. Here we are in the northeastern part of Butler County here. Here's the Jacksonburg area over towards Astoria. They're still seeing a little bit of rotation here heading over towards Heltzer Road and south of Browns Chapel. Again, the rotation seemingly is weakening just a little bit here within the past couple of minutes. Let's go back, Allison, if we can, because I do see that the National Weather Service did at least extend the severe thunderstorm warning in this. Again, it is looking a little more ragged now. As you can see, we no longer have that well-developed area where we had inflow, right? It looks a little more ragged. You see how it's filled in some with rain, and as a result, you notice initially it had a well-defined hook to it. So again, this storm could be doing what we call cycling again. One more time, because I do notice again overall there's been a decrease in lightning. That's the storm up here, Allison. Looks like right now, before we go south, I think if you're in Franklin and Springboro, it's going to be a very close call. But this storm may jog just north of you, but I'd be very careful, especially north of Franklin and near Springboro there. Let's drop south of the river really fast because I do want to go into Boone County. I did see a storm there that did show some broad rotation right here. This is the one south of Florence, just north of the 71-75 split. If you look right in there, it's fairly broad at the moment, but heads up, if you're in Kenton County, for example, watch this storm as it passes you by in the next couple of minutes. It's very close, but it would be in this area, maybe just south. Again, it's kind of a broad rotation. with what we're seeing, but right in that area, and you can almost make it out south of Union in this general area here. This is going to be coming very close to Richwood Road. This is the Richwood Road area south of Florence there. I think there's a couple of rest stops right in that general area before you get to the 71-75 split, for example, here near the Richwood Road exit. And then there's the split just a little ways on down. But right here, Richwood Road, the Kensington area, I'd keep an eye out if you're over here towards Banklick and Independence. Not seeing anything that screams out tornado, but certainly seeing broad rotation. So that's something we'll be keeping an eye on as this storm comes by. It looks pretty ragged, so that, in terms of the structure on radar, but that doesn't mean that there couldn't be something in there. So we're looking good at this point. Looks like we've got a